Friday night, I'm going nowhere. All the lights are changing, green to red. Turning over TV stations, situations running through.
Hello, hello, gentlemen. Good evening to you.
Hi-oh. Oh, that was too
Hello.
early. My bad.
It's clear that I've been blind.
I'm excited.
Oh yeah, I'm tingling.
Open up my heart to all that jealousy, that bitterness,
Kevin, how are you?
ridicule.
My timbers are shivering.
mm.
All right, well, let's not waste any time here talking like a pair of broads or
Oh boy.
three broads. Um, whatever. Yeah, welcome. Welcome to you two, and welcome to anyone and everyone who might be listening to our husky, sultry voices. My name is Juan, here as always with Mark
Hi. Sultry.
and Kevin.
Woo! Let's do this.
And we like movies. And
Oh yeah.
if you listened to our most recent episode, then you heard us previewing the movie that we are discussing and reviewing tonight. And henceforth, you might know that that movie is called Babylon. It was released in 2022. You may or may not have heard of it. Apparently, it had one of the worst marketing campaigns known to man.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but it's directed by Damien Chazelle, acclaimed director of such award-winning and notable films like La La Land,
Mm-hmm.
Whiplash, and
Mm-hmm.
First Man. I believe is the one about Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin,
Yes.
Mm.
one of those.
I missed that one.
Um, Not as good as the other two, but also worthwhile. If if for nothing else than to see Ryan Gosling in a movie. Um, but uh, but yeah, the film stars uh, Margot Robbie, Diego Calva, Brad Pitt, and a few other people. And this was my pick, as I mentioned in the preview. I've seen this movie once, but for me, it was a remarkable and quite unforgettable experience that stuck with me and that I just kept thinking back upon fondly. I really, really love this movie. Even though I know that it is not popular, it was not received well, and I think a lot of people just skipped it, including my two companions here. And so
Mm-hmm.
my excitement is in having this platform to force them to watch the movies that I want them to watch, and then hearing if they, love me or hate me for it. So that's what I'm excited about. Before we jump into that, I'll tell you a little bit about the plot of the film. We'd have to travel back to, is it the Roaring 20s? This is the 20s that were roaring, Kevin?
Yes,
Yeah.
1926.
Starts
So
in the
this one's roaring.
20s.
And he goes.
Yeah, we're going back to the roaring 1920s, Hollywood, Los Angeles, California. This is a time in the film industry in which silent films, were at their apex, but are now having to make way for the innovation of sound in films and what was referred to as talkies back in the day. And so this was a big sort of tectonic shift in the film industry, and that's kind of the backdrop and the center of this film, which then revolves around at least 4 or 5 pretty much central characters. But the main three are Margot Robbie's character, Nellie Leroy, who's kind of like the it girl for a moment. She's the wild child, but who came up from nothing, who's from New Jersey. Then we have Jack Conrad, played by Brad Pitt, who is the ultimate, star of the time of the silent movie era. And then we have Manny, played by Diego Calva, who is, a Mexican gentleman who's just starting from the bottom, wanting to be involved in the film industry, doing anything that he can to just get ahead and find a way to be involved in the film industry. Then you have a couple of other side stories with Sydney, the trumpet player, the black gentleman who's a really good trumpet player who's also involved with film and has some opportunities open up. And then some people say the fifth main character is Eleanor St. John, who is the journalist that's kind of covering
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood at the time. But I think it's a little bit more of Lady Fei Zhu, played by Li Jun Li, who is a cabaret singer and kind of does everything. I think she does costumes and she does like the title cards and everything for the films in the silent era, and she's also a lesbian. So anyway, each one of these guys has their story, but it pretty much culminates in this transition and how it impacts each of them, but even just how their involvement in what Hollywood was, which was just crazy, drug filled, booze, sex, everything going on, and then of course the magic of making movies. So that's what I can tell you about the plot of Babylon. It's a 3 hour long adventure, and with that, I will now relinquish the microphone, and if Mark doesn't mind, I would like to throw it over to Kevin to just get to just give us his first take on the film. What can we expect to hear from you, Kevin? What was your impression?
Okay. I feel like
I
this
watched this
was.
with my girls.
I shouldn't have. I should have watched it with my 7-year-old. No. I do like what the director said. It's a poison pen to Hollywood, but a love letter to cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to say anything in my real quick synopsis, to me, honestly, it was like a reversal of the first two films we saw, where we loved everything and the ending didn't hit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot I did not like along the movie. Um, I didn't like. I think it was exposition heavy. We were told why the characters were feeling the way they were feeling instead of being shown things, and think like, and we didn't really find it. Like, we were told things about their past, but we didn't discover anything about their past. At least in my experience with the movie. But the last probably 10 minutes of the movie made me go from thinking to like I loved everything when it hit 1950 whatever, and he shows up and he goes
Mm-hmm.
back to like the studio, and then he goes to the film thing and they're doing all these clips. Like, I absolutely I would watch that probably 20 times. I'm like, ooh, let me look up that clip, let me watch it, because I love that part, that last 10 minutes of it. The rest of it was there were some good parts, like it was pretty in some scenes, but I think we always talk about, like, I think filmmakers now, they know how to frame a shot, make things look good. I just think the writing to me was uneven. I think there was a lot of things being thrown out, just to be like thrown out there, and
Mm-hmm.
it didn't really resonate with me, and like along with the characters. Some of it did, which we'll discuss, but a lot of it, I just felt like, okay, that was there just to shock me. It
Mm,
wasn't shocking because it happened so much. It was no longer shocking.
mm. Well,
and
there's definitely a lot going on in the movie. So I agree with you on that. But I think in the course of this conversation, especially depending on which angle Mark's going to be coming in from, I might be able to make you see some light in this tunnel. So, Mark, where you at with this?
Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Cocaine is a hell of a drug. No, I find myself aligning with Kevin a lot this season, and yeah, I mean he kind of hit it on the head. This movie made me so anxious, and like the anxiety was just flowing through me that I had to stop the movie. I started at a time where I knew I can watch it through and not worry about like falling asleep. Boy, I could have watched this movie at 2 a.m. and I would not have fallen asleep at all. There's just so much going on all at once, and it's just like it's so hard to just watch and be like, oh, this is, this movie's okay. And so just the amount of anxiety that I was getting from this movie, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It just it yeah, what Kevin said, 1,000%.
So, what did you feel was inducing the anxiety for you? Was there a
All right,
particular
let's
character that you like connected with, or a particular storyline, or like what exactly pulled you in to feel this way?
the amount of things that were happening on screen at once. There was just mass chaos, right?
Hmm.
And so the movie starts off, and they're headed to Wallach's party, and in the first 10 minutes, we have an elephant that has explosive diarrhea, which is
Yeah,
followed up by a woman peeing into the belly button of a man, slowly running it up into his gullet. And it's just like that's how the movie starts. And so
yeah,
like this party is just absolutely insane, which
yeah.
I mean, it could have been toned down 20 per 40, 50, 60%, and it still would have conveyed that, oh, they like to have sex and do drugs. But it was just insane. And then the next scene, they're in a movie studio, quote unquote studio, and it's just everyone is filming their movies at once, and it's just chaos. And it's just and then he's got to go get the camera, and just like it was just constant chaos for me. The ending didn't hit as much that it did for Kevin, but it was a fitting ending for me. My most enjoyable parts were the 30s to the 50s when they were actually fleshing out stories, and we got to see these characters where you can invest in them. But then they, it just was like, okay, well, this movie's gone on for 2.5 hours. We really got to end it. And so it just kind of goes into this end. And, none of the stories ended well. Well, I guess you can say Sydney's story ended well, but it wasn't a good ending for him because of why he had to leave Hollywood. So
Hmm.
like after everything that we watched, nothing ends well. And I was really, really 100% waiting for someone to walk up to Diego in the movie theater and blow his brains out. I was like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And I really couldn't enjoy that scene because I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it to happen because I'm like, dude, they told you don't come back. And in the movies, if you ever come back, they kill you. That's how
Yeah.
it always is.
Yeah.
So I was just waiting for that. And did it happen? I was like, oh, okay. I guess that's good, but also his story didn't end well. I mean, he got married and had a kid, so that's nice, but he didn't do what he wanted to do, which was be in movies.
Well, I think he wanted to like make movies. He wanted to be. I think he wanted to be a part of like making movies. I don't know
Which he
that he.
couldn't do anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Definitely. He got to taste that. But see, that's you're touching on things that for me are what actually give the movie so much depth and like make it so profound is what exactly that quote that Kevin said from Damien Chazelle said
Yeah, it's a
that
poison pen to Hollywood.
yeah, a poison pen to Hollywood and a love letter to cinema, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I think it's a very incredibly difficult task what he's trying to do. I think to me he does it successfully, but I could see how too many of the things that were happening, may have taken the attention, or distracted, because I think there is a lot of tragedy, and there's s- there's something that I drew out of each of those stories that I think is really interesting, and so it's just this this uh, duality and this dichotomy, right, of for us, even like we love movies, we love cinema, we love film, we love the making of it. We have these directors that we are huge fans of, and the things that they're able to do, whether it's on live sets or with digital effects. And then we have actors that we are huge fans of because of the performances and because of the types of movies that they choose to make and the chances that they take, and like all that is great. And it's like, but then he's also showing like all this beauty can come from such hideousness, like such ugliness, as the debauchery that's on display in these
Mm-hmm.
parties, which is like the lowest and the ugliest of humanity. I mean, when you go and you go into this, you know, three or four levels of this underground where there's these dark, disgusting people gathered to watch this man literally eat a live rat whole. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
bro, you can't get any lower than that, you know? But it's so it's like how is it it's this combination of like this ugliness that but also creates this beauty and this magic that has captivated so many people. But then within that too, like what fascinates me about each of the arc of the characters, if you go back and analyze each one, like what he's showing you is like, if you think about for Nellie and for Manny and Jack and Sydney and even Lady Feizu, it was like they are they are accepted into the club because of there's something special about them. And this was also little tidbits that I picked up from listening to other people's analysis of the movie. But, like, for example, with Nellie, at first, it's because she's low class, right? And because she's why they call her the wild child, right? And that's how
Mm-hmm.
she gains her popularity and becomes like the star, the female star of the moment. But then it literally is as the time goes on, that is the very thing that they then want to change about her, right? They want her to be sophisticated, they want her to speak with a different accent, not to sound dumb and not to be so like whorish or whatever, to appear so whorish or whatever. And you can see that trend for each one of the characters, right, where it's like what who they are essentially is what gets them into the club. Jack's like really handsome or whatever, but then it in order to remain, they have to change essentially who they are to just fit in, right? And eventually they just get spit out. Like, you cannot win, you will eventually just get spit out. So like things like that are happening in the film, to me, are like really really interesting, right, that he's putting on display and that he's showing. And it's so cool that it's different. Like you said, Sydney has probably the best storyline at the end of it, because he kind of walks out on his own terms. But like what happened
Mm-hmm.
to him is terrible. Like, you're a black man having to wear blackface in order to so that you can sell more tickets in the South, and then it's Manny who's the one that's trying to convince him of that. So like Manny, who is a Mexican, who then doesn't say he's a Mexican later on, he says he's from Spain. So it's like how it forced it, so then you take that into today, right? And it's still like that, if not maybe even worse. So I don't know, did you guys see any of that in the characters, or how did you see the arcs playing out, um for each
I
of them?
think what I want to say is like, because you mentioned on Nelly, right? And I think what encapsulates the movie for me was it felt like he was trying to do that, and like he was telling us he was doing that. But there's a scene where she's at a party and she overhears people talking crap about her, and you see it affects her. And I'm like, oh wow, we're gonna get something from her. You know what I mean? And then she confronts her dad, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, cool. Like now she's losing because she's hurt. You know, because they're making fun of her, they're making fun of her dad. But then all of a sudden, it goes from dealing with that to like, who wants to see him fight a rattlesnake? And now we're in the desert and they're fighting a rattlesnake. And she's like, no, F it, I'll fight it. And now it's biting her neck. And then Brad Pitt's going and he gets hit by a car. And then they're sucking it out. And now she's kissing the, lady, face. Like, and all that took away from the fact that, oh, we were just at a really good moment where we were seeing how like this machine is like messing with her because she thought she was a bad A. She was in charge or anything. And now she's realizing, oh, wow, they're making fun of me.
Mm-hmm.
And like to compare to another movie where I saw that is the great Galaxy Quest.
Mm-hmm.
When Tim Allen's character hears it, like he comes out and you see he has the attitude and you see it's affected him, and we're not distracted from it. We go with that. But I think that like that part, like it's just what I'm talking about. Like, was there so much that's happening? Like we don't have time to dwell on like, okay, I'm like, I think the best like plot out almost was when Brad Pitt went and blew his brains out, his character. Yeah. I'm like, because we stayed with it and then we're like, oh wow, we're here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Even though I have issues with like, oh yeah, he feels bad because his friend died, but we only saw his friend like twice and he's like, hey, it's all right, I'll get a girl, but then later he tells us, oh, this is why he means so much to me. But like they didn't really build that up. We just saw him come in and out and now he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I did like to see where he goes because we stayed in it. And then, and it was him walking and it was really quiet. So I did feel like a little bit emotional towards that. I thought that was done well. But like I said, even with the Margot Robbie character, her death is a blurb in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we dedicate this time and like, was she killed by the mobster? Did she have an overdose? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we didn't get to like sit with that emotion of her feeling used and broken.
Yeah. I think that the only real two characters that were being forced to change were Nellie and Sydney. Diego wasn't forced to change. He just decided that he felt like he had to, hide things about his life. But there was no like, hey, you need to change this. It was only really Nellie and Sydney that got that. Jack, he, we're told that he's heartbroken by his friend dying and it meant so much to him. And, he's just a failed actor. And it's not that he's not willing to try, because he did try. He did try the talkies. And I didn't understand why they were laughing at him, because of it. He's a great actor. I mean, and even Nellie was a great actor too. When she had her first scene and they just had her crying, and it was like, oh wow, so this girl can act, know. And so I understood that they wanted her to change who she was as a person, because she's not, rubbing shoulders and elbows the right way, because she's rough, And with Sydney's the same thing. It's like, hey man, you're, we understand that you're leading this, but we have lights and, you got to paint your face black. And that's huge. Like that was big. And I feel like for those two characters, we got to see a little bit more about, why they were being forced to change. But for the other characters, we didn't really get much. And I think that's why I like the middle part the most. The middle of the movie is because that's when Nellie's getting fleshed out. That's when Sydney's getting fleshed out. Diego's, he's becoming what he wanted to be getting into the movies. I don't think he really had to change anything. He just, was getting things done. And the same thing for Jack. We don't really. Yeah, everyone's saying that his movie sucks, but we don't know why they suck. We just had this one scene where he's being laughed at because of just saying "I love you," and I didn't get it. I didn't understand why that was so funny. So we didn't really get much on that. So I those arcs didn't hit as much as the other two, Nellie and Sydney. But the ending, I really only like Sydney's ending because, like Kevin said, Nellie kind of just disappeared. I thought they were gonna show us her get hit by a car or something as she's crossing the street, or we get something, but no, we didn't get anything at all. And then all of a sudden we see the paper and it says in the bottom left, oh, Nelly died. And it's like, oh, well, I knew that was going to happen, but I guess I just have to assume and wonder why it happened.
I think it's like the idea. I was okay with it, and I just, for me, it fit into sort of the um, what's the word? Sort of the, is it adage maybe of like kind of like the the stars that burn too bright, burn out quick or something like that.
Yeah.
It was I just took it as a case of that, like
Yeah.
she just got to burn for a little bit. She was just it just was her path. Like it was, I think, especially with her and Jack. And you're absolutely right. It doesn't make sense, that they were laughing at his scene in the movie, and he really was like trying, and he really wanted, he gives a speech before he falls into the pool where he's like, let's innovate and let's push this into the next era, like
Mm-hmm.
he really wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do that. But it's really in his conversation with the tabloid writer, or the reporter,
Eleanor. Yeah.
Eleanor, where she's like, there's no explanation for it, and it doesn't make sense. Your time is just
Yeah.
up, and there's nothing you can do about it. You didn't do anything wrong. You can't do anything to change it. Like, your time is just up. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's hard. It is hard to accept, and if it's hard for us to accept, you can only imagine for him, especially after being on the top for so long. But I think maybe it wasn't so much with him. It wasn't. I think the forcing him to change, it just looks different for each of the characters. For him, it was like, I think it comes down to when he was trying to learn his lines with his wife, right, who was like
Mm-hmm.
this classical theater person. And she's like saying, do this like this, try it like this, and she's like trying to help him and coach him. And then he just
Yeah.
runs out of patience, and he flips out at her, right? And he's like, well, you say what I do isn't important, but it is, and blah blah blah. And he doesn't want to change, right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
had he embraced that, and embraced those techniques or whatever, but I don't think he was willing to do that, so it was a change that perhaps, he needed to make, or perhaps his time was just up, I don't know. But I just think it's, yeah, slightly different, but a similar idea for each one of the characters. um
Yeah. I see what you're
and
saying.
but I mean, I don't, I'd like to hear if you guys, what you guys thought, because for me, just the just a few sequences alone for me, and even though they were sort of anxiety inducing, for me they were still like amazing, and I was just like, had so much fun watching them, but was also just like
Mm-hmm.
in awe. Like, for me, they were really like, I mean, the party, as bad as it was, it's a very impressive sequence, with everything
Oh
that's
yeah, for
happening,
sure.
and like the way that he's
Mm-hmm.
shooting it and just all the chaos. But then, yeah, that next scene into, the filming, and really a focus on the filming of two movies, right? The one with Nellie, where she's just given this shot and thrown in there, and the female director, which I had to even look this up because I didn't know that there were any female directors at that time, but apparently there were at least two that were really good. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, and they're like asking, she's like doing all these things like on cue and crying, and even controlling the volume of the tears, maybe just one or two, or and then the director, like on the spot, like, wait, I want to do this with the light. Can you do that? And like just work the back and forth and the extras and everything. Like, just seeing the movie happening, and then with the German director and Jack's scene and all the extras, and then having to get the camera and having to do it before sunset so that they could get the perfect shot, and then they finally get it, and like how everyone's working together, and it's just to get this one shot for this film. Like, those sequences to me were so fun and
Mm-hmm.
so impressive, to because there's so much going on, and yet the ability to even create that anxiety, right? By the way that it's being shot, by the way that it's being edited, by the way that, even though it's chaotic, like at least in those particular ones, you're still following the action. Like you're never getting lost. You know exactly what's
Hmm.
happening and what they're trying to accomplish and what the stakes are, and ultimately the magic of the movies is happening right there before your eyes. And then the other sequence that I loved, outside of that ending, which also really got me the first time, but then with Nelly again, right? When now she's having to do the movie with talking and with sound, right? And you got
Hmm.
the guy in the freaking hot box, and you got the guy up top, and it was so that for me that scene was even more impressive, and it really gave me a new appreciation for acting because she had to nail everything, right? She had to
Hmm.
nail the volume of her voice, the diction of her words, how when she came in, how hard she dropped the suitcase, making sure she hit her mark, going over to the phone, knowing all her lines. And if she messes up, you have to restart. And in that scene, they had done about, I think, maybe like 17 takes, maybe close to 20 takes. And
Hmm.
the one guy that sneezed, like that scene to me was really funny, but it gave me an appreciation, and even then you saw her talent, like she had talent, and Margot Robbie did an amazing job in this movie. But again, it was like they didn't care about the wild child anymore. They
Hmm.
wanted this other image, and if she didn't change into that image, then it wasn't gonna work. But to me, those sequences about really the behind the scenes stuff, the filmmaking, and what that looked like back then, and even knowing what it looks like now and how it's evolved, like for me, it was just so much fun and so fascinating, and it was shot and executed so well. Like I was
Hmm.
just huge. Like I could watch the movie over and over again just for those sequences.
I enjoyed that scene with Margot when she had to do the first talkie. I enjoyed that one way more than I enjoyed the first, movie production scene. I think the problem was that we come from this party that's crazy. I think it was just it was too long.
Yeah,
It was just there was too it was too long.
yeah,
And then we go right into it where it's just like they're driving through and everyone's yelling and screaming, and it was just the continued chaos with that scene where she's doing her first talkie movie. We're listening to the footsteps, and yeah,
yeah.
they cut and they start yelling and screaming, and there's like a little bit of chaos, and I thought that scene was enjoyable. I was even chuckling about the lady who had the rod in her ankle. Like that was hilarious. Like, but it gave us time to see and focus on what we needed to focus on. And I do agree. While I mean, the commotion was happening, we're not losing focus of who we need to be looking at. But it just felt like too much, too much, too much, and that's why I appreciated that scene. And it still had its chaos moments, but I enjoyed that much better than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I liked, I like the movie making part in the beginning, just as like a little behind the scenes look at what cinema was before the studios were all built up and all that.
Yeah.
Where all these different movies are filming on the same lot because you don't have sound, so you don't really care. And even when the talks were introduced, like it was interesting to see how, yeah, like you could be a star, even Charlie Chaplin, how he was a star in the silent era, but like now that you got to speak, it's not the same because now you have to deliver lines, you have to do this, you have to try to memorize lines. Even that scene, the first Margot Robbie's first talkie, like she was trying to remember because she's not used to remembering dialogue. She just does what
Mm-hmm.
they tell her, and they just throw stuff. Like all those stuffs were great. I think what like ultimately to me, like what Mark said, like it's so much being thrown at you. I think the narrative thread through there could have been tighter. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
As opposed to we again, the party's fine. Like we had that P Diddy style party at the beginning. That's fine. But then it doesn't stop. Like it's always something. Even the part like when they go to like that part was great because we stopped and it felt like it was for like a long scene, but they just kept redoing that one scene, and every time something small was changing and we were engaged. Then after
Right.
that, I can't remember what scene was after it because there's so much comes. I can't even remember the order properly in my head because there's just so many things coming at you. Even when they go to the underground, like the depths of hell. I mean, we see the guy eat the rat. We're like, oh wow, now, but we don't. We can't even dwell on the guy thinking, wow, where am I? Because now the money's counterfeit. Now I'm stabbing this guy. I'm running. I'm chopping this alligator free, and we're just bolting for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's so much happening that, like, story wise, like even when I'm talking about it now, I was like, oh wait, where does that fit to the overall narrative? And again, I understand the story he's trying to tell. I just don't think the narrative thread like ran as smoothly as it could have been told in this movie.
Since we're addressing that Tobey Maguire scene, can I tell you that that was a massive fumble on his character? I was not expecting him to just be some random bookie. I fully thought he was going to be a movie producer because it fits in with the movie, you know? And now he becomes like the Harvey Weinstein type guy. And he's the one that ends up ruining Nelly's career and making Diego do things that he doesn't want to do. Like, I felt like that was a massive fumble, man. And although I enjoyed that scene and I thought it was him like as his character was hilarious, and them going into the depths was just like, oh, all right. I wasn't expecting the movie to go this way, but okay. I was really disappointed by how they used this character.
I thought he was like a
Now,
mobster.
yeah, he was like a mobster but bookie because she was gambling and owed him money. But like, I will say this: like, I did think like when he was pitching movie ideas that he was going to get involved in movies, and then we were going to see how he rose to power in Hollywood and how these crappy people become. But then when I did read a little bit up on the movie, his character is based on an actual person who existed and actually was involved. Like, because Margot Robbie's character, Nelly, is based on an actual person. Like, she's not real, but it was based on an actual person.
Yeah.
Like Clara Bow or whatever her name was. And there was and that gangster played a part in her gambling and her downfall also.
Yeah.
So I think that's why he tried to include it in there. It's not the same person, but like a little bit. I agree with Mark where you don't have to stick completely to that. You could have told like another story about like how, creepy and crappy Hollywood can be, where like Manny starts falling even though he's a good guy, and this crappy person's rising, and even though he has bad ideas, just because the way he does business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I thought you were gonna say something. I sorely disappointed because when he started pitching ideas, I'm like doing that Jack Nicholson nod, like, yes, here it comes. And he's like, come on, let me show you the next big guy. And I'm like, yes, let's do this. And then they bring the money in. I'm like, why are they bringing the money in? That's so weird. Oh, that's what's going to happen. He finds out the money's fake and that's that. We already knew that they were in trouble. They didn't need to be in more trouble. She already owed the money. He already tried to help. And so, yeah, I was really hoping it was going to be like, well, you're going to make this movie because you owe me $85,000. And they're go, all right, we'll make you one movie. And now, now they're in deep with this movie because they owed money. So, although the scene, was fun to watch and everything was shot great. I'm not mad at the way that the movie was. It was beautiful to look at. I mean, even with the debaucherous stuff, that it was all shot very well.
Yeah.
It just that only went so far because how the story just started not giving us what we needed, and like Kevin said, just kind of spoon fed us information. I mean, we could have seen Nelly's downfall. They could have did that instead of showing all these parties. We could have saw that. We could have saw Diego making more moves. We could have saw Jack and actually having a friendship with, I forgot the guy's name, his friend's name, but forming that friendship. So then when he dies, we go, oh snap, that was like his best friend, instead of just hearing George. There we go. That was my best friend. Like, oh, okay. I would have never guessed that. I mean, you're carrying this guy around with a toilet seat around his neck. I wouldn't do that to my best friend. I'd take the toilet seat off at least. So it was disappointing that, it's kind of like, okay, I feel like that's why they had to hold our hand throughout the movie. Cause it's like, it's about to get crazy, guys. So just follow me this way and hold tight, and If they would have dialed those scenes back a little bit, cut them in half or something, keep them crazy, sure, but we don't need to see a party for 30 minutes. We don't need to see the craziness of making two movies that we're focusing on for 30 minutes. It's just, I wish they would have, delved more into the characters instead of just showing like, oh, this is how crazy and bad Hollywood was.
Yeah, I just don't agree. I mean, I don't think that you guys are wrong in what you're saying. I just think that for me, I just saw it a little bit differently, and I felt like you saw enough. You saw enough of what you needed to see to at least. I don't think, I don't know. I just don't get the feeling that the intention was you getting emotionally invested in the characters. I think
Hmm.
it was more what he was putting on display about this era and about this industry and about the people that are involved in it. So I think you saw enough of the characters to know, like Nellie, I don't have to know what her childhood was to know she comes from a rough background, right? And she's very motivated to do whatever it takes to get into the movies. And surprisingly enough, she's actually really talented, right?
Hmm.
Then they bring in her father into the picture to, and you automatically are like, all right, this guy's a sleazeball, right? So that informs you even more about this dynamic. And Kevin, if you recall, it wasn't her intention first to fight the snake. She wanted her dad to fight the snake at
Yeah, no,
first,
yeah.
and
That's
then
what I
I
said. Who
and then
wants to
he
see this
he
motherfucker fight?
he like passed out, right? I
Yeah.
think, yeah, he like passed
He
out
was drunk.
drunk. Yeah. So then she's like got fed up and she's like, fine, I'll do it. So my point is just that I think he gives you enough for you to understand enough about the character to put it into context, who they are, and yeah, basically who they are, and why they are affected the way that they are by, just getting swallowed up by this, beast of this industry. Because like even yeah, the part with the bookie and the guy eating the rat, what was, to me, what was tense and interesting about that whole sequence was that Manny didn't want to do any of that. First of all,
Hmm.
he was only doing it because he's in love with Nellie, right? So he'll do anything to help Nellie. I don't know why he thinks this mysterious kooky character, the Count, is all of a sudden appearing with $80,000 to save the day, and he's like, all right, cool. He's just so relieved, that he's found a solution, that he's like, sure, whatever, I believe you, let's go. But the whole, as soon as they get there, he wants to hand the money. He wants to leave. He doesn't want to talk to this guy, and every step of the way, like Manny doesn't want to be there. He wants to leave. He wants to find an escape, find a way as quickly as possible to get out of here. But he keeps getting dragged and pressured into this. And if the money would have been real, I think they possibly would have gotten involved with this guy in the movies, because I think the whole reason he wanted to take him down there and show him was like, because he's like, he's amazing, he's the next big thing, he's incredible. So it was
Yeah.
probably like he needs to be in a movie or something like that. So I think that's probably where it would have went if it hadn't turned out to be fake money, and then them having to get out of there, to save their lives. But yeah, for me, I will acknowledge that it was a lot going on, for sure. The party at the beginning, probably could have been cut down. There were things that happened with some of the, remember that cut into that is like Nelly and Manny meeting and then having their moment. Then you got
Hmm.
the elephant, back from the opening sequence coming in. So I think there's still things that are relevant happening. It's not just a party. It's not just
Well, yeah.
shooting a
The
party.
only reason Nelly got the job was because that girl OD'd.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I agree with, I'll agree with you. It still probably could have been shorter, but Damien Chazelle, I trust he knows what he's doing, and so it was.
He was holding your hand tight.
This was the movie that he wanted to make. But no, ultimately, what I mean to say is just that I feel that you got enough of each character to at least understand their conflict and what their role was in the story, how they got swallowed up in this beast, and the consequences that it had on them.
Yeah.
And
And I think
yeah,
I was gonna say, and what you said, I'll agree that he gave us enough to know what was going on,
yeah.
but I would add on, he didn't give me enough to care about what was going on with them.
Well, but that's what I'm. Well, so are you talking about emotional investment, right?
Well, yeah,
Emotional
and again, it
entanglement,
doesn't even mean
involvement.
if yeah, like, because ultimately as a movie, you want to draw me in and want me to know what's going to happen with these people. You know what I mean? Care about what's going to happen to these
Yeah,
people.
but see,
You know what I mean?
I
And
don't think this is that kind of movie.
and again, and it may not be, which is probably why it's
Although
not the
I
movie
think
for
the
me.
closest you get is with Brad Pitt's character, right? I think
Yes,
that's
no,
Hmm.
and that's why his ending, I think, was like, to me, like, was really well done.
yeah,
And even Sydney's, like, when he's like, he took it on for the team to make sure everyone got paid, and he's like, I'm not gonna need that pass anymore. You know what I mean? I'm like, they still show stuff for him, but like, when we invest in a character like, Nellie Leroy, and we don't like, again, not even get a definitive, like, all right, she's just that, it was just a blurb written. Like I said, okay, I know she died.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, it had no impact, and I did not care that she died at that point. I'm like, oh, she's dead. Okay.
But
You know what
here,
I mean?
yeah.
And again, and it's cool. Again, it may not be the movie that he wanted to. Like, if I can't connect with things that are happening, you know what I mean? Like, then I don't like. I'm watching the movie and it's well done, and it's my senses are being overloaded by stuff. Like, I don't like. Why am I caring what's happening on the screen
Yeah.
if I don't care about what's happening to the people on the screen?
Well, because let me tell you why, right?
You tell me
Please
why.
do. Please
Okay.
do.
This movie, so from an article that I read, was saying that a lot of the things that happen in the movie, I don't know what percentage of them, but at least some of them, if not a lot of them, are based, and you already touched on it, with the one Nelly being based on a real character or whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of the stories are like stories of old Hollywood, whether they're true or not, or they're legend or whatever, but they are things that possibly really did happen, you know. So I think that informs the idea that, and I think I gonna use this word. I think I'm using it properly, but I don't remember. Kevin, you probably will know. But I think that this movie is a fable, right? And a fable, when you think back to being a kid, right? In a fable, you don't get emotionally attached to the characters, but there's a theme and there's a message, right? And that's what you take away from it, right? Whether it's Goldilocks, Little Red Riding Hood, I think those are fables. Oh,
Hmm.
and I think that, and to me, that's what this movie is. It's not about getting attached to any of these characters. It's about this fable, and whatever the lesson is for you to take away. For me, I think it's hard for me to, I if it's true, like it's giving me a real insight into Damien Chazelle, which to me would inform that he's a conflicted person because he's extremely good at what he does. But
Hmm.
it's if based on this movie, I would say that he's conflicted about being in Hollywood, because I think what he's saying is like, is this dream really worth pursuing? Because it's going to destroy you. It's going to destroy your soul, or it's really just going to destroy your life. And maybe in the middle, you get to make some cool art and like experience, really the magic of filmmaking. But because none of these characters, well, many does have a happy ending, and
Hmm.
and Sydney again walks out on his own terms. But but um but it's going to destroy your soul to an extent, and you're lucky if you can escape it. So for me, it's a fable with that lesson at the heart of it. And I think when you're talking about fables, you're not. I know where you guys are coming from, because that's what we want and what we expect and what we believe it is an important cinematic element for you to, yeah, to care. So I understand and I don't disagree. But for me, again, I just see it more as that, as a really good fable, about Hollywood with
Yeah.
these lessons. And again, not a lesson for life or whatever, but a lesson particularly about this industry, and even about that era then. But I think the era even could be interchangeable with the era today, right? We went from DVDs to like streaming, right? And we're
Hmm.
also like in a transition where that industry is changing drastically also because of it. So I think, yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, what I'll say is one thing. Like, I understand what you're saying about fable, but fable's definition is a short story
Hmm.
where I don't have to invest in them because it's trying to tell a point. Like,
Right.
if you ask me to invest 3 hours into it,
Hmm.
and again, I will tell you this. Like, I was amazed by this fact. This movie was both simultaneously a quick viewing and the longest thing I've ever seen.
Hmm.
Like, because
That's
like
impressive.
when it first was going, I had to stop. Like, I had to stop it. I'm like, oh man, we must be like 15 minutes in. Like, I got to use the restroom. So I paused it. I'm like, oh crap, we're 45 minutes in. This thing's flying by. Then I had to stop again because I had to go get the girl something to eat. And I was like, all right, let me pause it. I'm like, we have to be. I'm like, oh, I don't want to pause it. We probably have like 15 minutes left. I paused it. It had an hour and 15 minutes left. I'm like, good lord, this thing is taking long now.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm like, so it's simultaneously, like, because I know you said it was a quick viewing. It was like, it was flying by. But then when I paused, I'm like, oh wow! Like the second time, I'm like, this is actually like taking longer than I thought it was. And again, none of it was bad. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
god, it was
yeah,
bad or
yeah,
anything. It just, like I said, like you've asked me to come at that time. I'm like, I feel like you want me to connect with Nelly because you even showed her mom like in some
Yeah.
institution, and then you see her. They say, hey, blah blah. Okay, okay, well, that was a waste of time, and just walked off. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to start feeling for her, and I do want like because the questions arise. I'm like, well, her dad, even though he was like not that great of her, like he wasn't good, like. And she's like, oh, he's still my dad. He has to be my manager, and he was kind of crappy, but he was there.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And but he did say the one thing when he was like, oh, she's not really that great or whatever,
hmm,
and like you can see that it hurt her. We don't delve into like we don't see like it impact her because again it's just feeding our senses, and it may have been his intention to say, hey, I just want to overload y'all with stuff because this is what Hollywood's like when you're in the midst of it. It says overload. But like I said, that's fine for a fable. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And if this was a shorter movie, you know what I mean, and it was driving that point home, it's just that storylines would come again and again. It wasn't bad at all. You know what I mean? I'm like, so I'm not saying it was bad. It's just that at the end of it, it was just like, okay, we saw a lot of things. I'm like, but could I sit here and tell someone like, oh, this is what happened? I'm like, I can't because there was so much that popped in my head. I don't think I really like. I latched onto some scenes here and there, but that was it. I'm like, and over a course of 3 hours, like I didn't connect with that final scene with Manny because like I'm like, oh, at least he's seeing they're portraying what happened in his life up there, and he was there. Maybe that's why he's breaking out. But I didn't care about that. I was just being touched by the stuff that they were showing on the screen.
hmm.
You know what I mean? And the people watching it. You know what I mean? How life's changed. And I actually did have this thought. I'm like, wow, one day I will go to the movies and I will sit alone to watch a movie. And I haven't done that in forever because I go with my girls all the time.
Hmm.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So time will change. Like I think that's the part that impacted him. Like, oh, there'll be one time where the girls won't be around anymore. And I'll just go catch a movie by myself.
Hmm.
And
And like I said, I'm like, I think that's where I felt like the connection to that. Like, oh wow, I have all these memories of seeing movies with my friends. And it connects all of us. We all have like this movie sharing experience of seeing it with friends, seeing it with family, and one day that won't be.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But that was my connection to that, and I think that's why the last 10 minutes I connected to with the characters. Again, we watched the 3 hour movie, and I don't know that I had. And again, it may not have been intention. I'm just telling you from my movie viewing experience. You know what I mean? I'm like, the movies I like, I feel something for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I was not. Like, I'm even confused on what happened with Eleanor. I thought maybe she killed herself. Because, again, her death was just a blur ball. So they're like, she's at the funeral. I'm like, oh, she dies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, she's dead now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think she had the part you talked about when she talked to Jack, right? Jack was his name. When she's
Mm-hmm.
like, "You didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing wrong with the movie. Your time's just over." I'm like, "Oh wow!" Like because when they filmed the scene, when they showed the scene, they were laughing. I'm like, "I wish they would have filmed it and it was bad." You know what I mean? I'm like sped up, or maybe the makeup looked horrible. But there was nothing wrong with that scene, and they were laughing. And I was like, "Mark, I don't know why they're laughing." But she said there was nothing wrong with the movie. You did a great job. It's just that it's not connecting to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's nothing, and like all these things are great, and then like again, she's just gone. So it was just introducing and exiting people, and I think to me, like I said, that's overall why at the end of the day, the movie doesn't resonate with me. I guess as it does with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I like the Hollywood scene, I like the Margot or the first talkie, I like some other scenes in it, but nothing resonated with me outside of those last 10 minutes
Yeah.
where I'd be like, "Yo, you got to watch this part." Like, you don't need to know what happened. This part resonates real well.
Yeah.
When I watch movies, I don't really like to ask why a character is doing what they're doing. So for two scenes that we've already touched on, the part with the rattlesnake, I fully thought that she was sending her dad out there to get him killed, and then he passed out, and then she decided to do it. I'm like, why? Is she trying to kill herself? That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem like why she would do that. So I didn't understand that. I totally thought that she was just trying to get her dad killed, and when it didn't work out, she'd be like, okay. But then, she puts herself in the line of fire. I didn't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the scene with Manny, you said 100%. He does not want to be there. He makes it known he does not want to be a part of that, but he's helping Nelly out. Then why deliver the money yourself? Like I did, why? So
Mm-hmm.
like for things like that, it just kind of just not spoiled, sours the movie just a little bit for me because it's like, well, you just said you don't want to have anything to do with this, but now you're showing up to deliver the money. Like why?
Well,
He could have just
Who
said the
else would have
count.
done it?
He could have just said the count. He had the count get the money. The count was willing to go clearly, and he was like, "I'm going to get a part in your next movie, right?" So he got everything he needed. Why did he need to be there then?
I
You
think
know?
because he loved Nelly, and so if you love if you know if I'm Manny and I am in love with this woman, I don't want to see her get killed, so I'm gonna make sure that the money is handed over, and you're not, the count's not gonna run off with it, or whoever's gonna run off with it because not only then will you be out $80,000, but Nelly's still gonna get killed. So I think it was
Yeah,
just assurance or
yeah, but
insurance.
for us, for us to go, oh yeah, that's why he's there. Meanwhile, it's like he didn't question why the count had money until they were sitting on the seats there. Like, none of that. I don't know. It didn't make sense as to why that happened, and the
Yeah,
rattlesnake scene just didn't make sense why that had to happen.
yeah,
So like, for me, I just want to watch a movie for the story. I think I could say I'm like the meathead of the group. I like just tell me a story and then just be a good story. The second I have to question things, it's frustrating for me.
hmm
The movie can be beautiful, but like you see Avatar, like that's a beautiful movie to look at, but it's like, why is this
Whoa, bro,
happening?
don't. Be
But
careful, careful saying that around Kevin.
it's just an example. I think Kevin can attest to the movie's not perfect. It doesn't have the best story. I've already seen that story. It's called Ferngully. Like, come on now.
But it's a great cinematic experience to see it in
Oh,
the
a
cinema.
hundred, 100%. I mean, seeing it for the first time was mind blowing because we're there just for the production of the movie. What it's groundbreaking, how this movie was filmed. It was all CGI, but it was all with actors. That's the reason why we saw the movie, and that's what it hit on. You know, I get once this movie ended, I said to Kristen like, "Oh, I could tell this was like a love letter to Hollywood." I didn't know about the poison pen part, which is very fitting. But I immediately got that from the movie. Oh, this is a love letter to Hollywood. So it delivered on what it wanted to, say. But at the end of the day, I just think that there were many scenes that could have been shortened to give us more on the actual characters that we're following, because we are following them, we're following their story. So
Mhm.
I want a beginning, a middle, and end. I want to know why they're in the situation that they're in, and I want to have a good resolution. That's just, I feel like that's a good movie.
Mhm.
And so the fact that it had too many things, like, why did that happen and why is this happening? Yeah, it was beautiful to look at, but it's just, that this wasn't that movie. It wasn't groundbreaking in the way that it was filmed, like Avatar.
Mhm.
So it's just, and for it to be 3 hours long, I've sat through plenty 3 hour long movies, and I've enjoyed most of them. I mean, Scorsese's been doing a lot of 3 hour movies, and I've been enjoying those. I'm getting a story, a beginning, middle, and end. And it's like, oh, that was good. So it's just, I think he was too focused on his love letter to Hollywood by not, giving us more of the Hollywood side of a movie. Hey, this is the movie, and yeah, it's the underbelly of Hollywood, and that's cool. I don't mind seeing that, but it's that, well, I kind of wish you would have gave me more on these characters that you've been showing me for 3 hours, instead of a newspaper clipping. And you know, even though the scene that Jack killed himself, I thought it was shot great. As soon as that door bounced open, I'm like, he's gonna kill himself. It just, though, it showed me what was going to happen, and happened. I thought that was great. So I understand what you're saying, but for me, like, I'm not that type of guy that's going to watch a movie to be like, oh man, I know the meaning that they were
Right.
trying, and
Yeah.
so it's just,
Yeah.
nothing against the movie, but I wish it gave me more on the story side and less on the show side.
Yeah, and really what you kind of speak to the confusion of what the movie was supposed to be, and I think this is why the movie failed. Again, I mentioned at the beginning the horrible marketing. Like,
Hmm.
it was atrocious, man. The trailers, the TV spots, they don't tell you anything about the story. All they
Yeah,
focus on is the party and just like
yeah.
crazy clips from throughout the movie with just text that says like Damien Chazelle has created another masterpiece, a spectacle of a, like, it doesn't tell you anything about it. And then that was followed by some marketing campaign on TikTok, just like cutting out pieces of the movie and like adding these like headings to it that are
Yeah.
like, it was like when Jack is drunk and Manny's dragging him out of the car, and it was like when I get home from the club or like something. It was like completely irrelevant to the movie, just random TikToks that were
Yeah,
marketing it to Gen Z, which was like, this isn't a Gen Z movie, bro. This is a movie for like people who are nostalgic, and like who love
yeah.
cinema and movies with depth and like directors who are like outdoors and things like that. It was terrible. So, with that being said, I think you guys have argued your points well, and I don't judge you
Well,
for
to
that.
to go off what you said though, real quick, the trailers. I seriously thought the first time I saw this trailer back in year whatever it was being promoted, it came out. I literally thought this was just a movie about a party,
Yeah,
and you're gonna see these characters and they're gonna intertwine, and then that's the movie.
yeah,
you know that's really, because that's all you saw was
yeah,
Margot Robbie's character being lifted up and spun around, and Brad Pitt just being sexy, and it's like, oh, all right, cool, this is just a party movie. All right, fine.
Yeah.
3 hours long, I don't want to watch no party movie 3 hours. I'm good.
yeah.
And I agree 100%, it was just bad marketing.
And
Horrible.
So there's a lot to the movie. I mean, there's a lot of great stories to the movie, and a lot of great scenes. But I agree 100%.
I will
The
say,
end of the
like,
movie where he said, "Hey, figure it out. Go ahead and market this thing."
in my memory, before we watched the trailer for our review episode, I'm like, I didn't realize this took place not in modern day. Like, from all what Mark was saying too, I'm like, it's a party. I thought it was all like a party that's happening like in modern, like in
Yeah,
21st century. Like, did not know it was a period piece at all. I'm like, I remember the Margot Robbie being carried Brad Pitt or whatever. I thought it was more like Celebrity, where like the movie Celebrity, where it takes place now, like in
Yeah.
New York,
You thought it
and
was a
it's just
bunch of hipsters throwing a flapper party.
yeah. I just thought it was like, oh, they're just dressed up. There's a dress up party, and there's a lot of debauchery going on, and things happen. Then when we rewatched the trailer, because I wasn't paying attention to the trailer back then. I guess it was just images stuck in my head and like in the pictures and stuff. But then when we watched the trailer, I was like, oh, this thing takes place before even Casablanca was made. I'm like, before the Petrified Forest. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so this is before Bogart's time. Okay. I'm like, and that did make me more. I guess when you described it, it made me more excited to actually see this movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But continue on. Sorry, I just had to touch on that because you were
No,
right. I would have never guessed that this
Yeah.
was the movie we were about to watch.
no, I was just setting Kevin up for the 411, so he could tell us a little bit more because this film failed fantastically, as you can see by the box office numbers, which Kevin should have in front of him.
I do. I'm just picking it up. It made 15.4 million
No
in the
way.
U.S. In the U.S., 63.4 worldwide, but it had a budget of 160 million.
Well, and they say marketing was maybe like another 80 or 100 or 150 or something marketing.
Yeah, yeah. So that
That's
was
wild.
combined production and promotion cost was 160. So it would have made 250 worldwide to break even. They lost about 87, 88 million on it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
Failed
now we
big.
know that's why it was his love letter because they killed him after this movie.
It was his suicide note. uh,
goodbye world.
Kevin, where is it at in the tomato meter and the Metacritic
Um,
stuff?
Here we go. Here we go. It has on Rotten
You know
Tomatoes
it's
holds
55, right?
close approval rating of 57%
Yeah.
based on 363 reviews, an average rating of 6.4 out of
Yeah.
10. Metacritic gave it a 61 out of 100 based on 63 credits.
Okay.
Mm,
Well,
And
I,
and it gets a C plus on Cinema Score.
mm.
I guess the numbers do not lie. I do have a fun fact, a bit of a fun fact about this
Yes.
movie, which is that the female director in the movie, her name was
Yeah.
Ruth. The character's name was Ruth Adler. Is played by Olivia Hamilton.
Hmm.
Is potentially based on one of two female directors who were working at that time, who were
Mm.
really big, and the actress Olivia Hamilton is Damien Chazelle's wife.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Mm.
What?
Nepotism at its finest.
You know what her first movie was?
Her first movie was
Yes.
it La La Land?
It was La La Land.
Ooh.
Nice. Winner, chicken dinner.
And her next movie is Untitled Damien Chazelle film.
Ooh. Well, I'll
It's
tell you
his.
what. I'll be watching.
It's it's about the end of his life and how this movie killed him.
It's about him trying to make all that money back.
David Chazelle, I need the money.
Yeah.
I I will say, since you mentioned even Olivia Hamilton, I'm like, she's not big, but there was so many like quick cameos by people,
Yes. Yes.
like Olivia Wilde, like
Olivia
when
Wilde.
she,
Yeah.
like I'm like, is that Olivia Wilde? And like she's just out the movie. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Flea.
Flea was in it. Jeff Garlin,
Yeah.
Eric Roberts, of course. Ethan Suplee was in the movie,
That's right. Yep. Dude,
and I
and
was like, well,
I thought the guy at first, the guy that was driving the truck with the elephant on the back of it, I thought that was Jelly Roll, but it's not. But dude, I was convinced that was Jelly Roll as I was watching it. I was like, look at this guy.
Was
But
the strong man who ate the rats a famous guy?
no.
Dang.
I had, dude, I had to search for that dude, and I closed that down. I'm like,
Dang.
you're nobody.
all right,
Here's
gentlemen.
Big Papa Pump.
I think the time has arrived for us to reveal our ratings for
Mm,
Babylon.
mm.
I'm happy to go first since this was my pick. I still do love this movie. I still will watch it again just because to me again some of those it's really some of those sequences I just love them so much. They're just shot so well and are just magical. Really trying not to be hyperbolic here, but they really are.
Mm-hmm.
So I will continue to watch those. For anyone interested in watching the movie, it is on Amazon Prime. That's where I think we all watched it. But
Mm-hmm.
this was my second viewing in with about a year and a half in between. And the first time I watched it, that ending hit really hard. Like it just kind of blew my socks off, and I was just like, "Oh man, this is such a love letter to Hollywood and this or that."
Mm-hmm.
This time around, it didn't quite hit the same, and I was like, I remember this differently. Like I feel like there were more clips in it the last time. I don't know. It was a different experience. So that
Mm-hmm.
was like a little bit of a disappointment. And it is long. As much as I do enjoy it and all the different sequences, it probably could have been shorter. So it loses a little bit for me, but ultimately it's still really high. I still really love it. I still think it's a masterpiece and I do recommend it. So for me, it is 4.5 Little Jerry's.
Hi-yo.
That's. Should I go next? I'll go
Oh
next.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Again, it wasn't. It's not filmed bad. I don't think the narrative's as strong. I didn't connect with stuff. The ending, I would recommend for people to watch. I won't hate if people tell me they saw it. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. What do you think? I'll be more interested just to know what they thought about the movie. Um, I don't think I would ever recommend this movie to anyone. For the most part, I'm thinking I'd probably give it a two, a
Mm,
2 out of 5, just because, like I said, like the performances weren't bad. But if somebody had said, "Hey, I have 3 hours to kill. What movie should I watch?" Like I have a lot of 3 hour movies I would suggest before this one, like RRR and a whole bunch of other stuff, different type of movies. And again, I don't think this is a lot of people's cup of tea. So
yeah.
with me, it's a 2 out of 5. I can't foresee me ever watching the movie again, but I would watch a couple of scenes from the movie because I did think even with the part where he was racing to get the camera, the music was really great. The score was fantastic. I will tell you that for
Yeah.
me,
Mm-hmm.
the
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
score was fantastic for me. So there's parts I would probably rewatch again. I just would never sit down and watch this whole movie again.
Mm.
Fair enough.
I heard that.
I wish I didn't, but I did. Um, I'm gonna go middle of the pack. That seems to be my sweet spot so far for the season. It's 3 for me. This is definitely a love letter to Hollywood. So anyone who is into film and loves just knowing more about films and whatnot, this is a great movie that kind of shows you behind the scenes and how these movies are made. And there were enjoyable scenes, and I found myself liking it, but then I also found myself hating it, and it was just a back and forth between the two. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a terrible movie, but I think it's a solid 3.
Yeah. I did want to say something that I was thinking about tonight. I don't know if you guys
Mm,
remember in one of our previous seasons, I don't even know which review it was, but I had mentioned, there's been a couple books written about kind of kind of like the basically how stories and therefore movies how they reflect
mm-hmm,
the gospel, right? Especially the four um, divisions of the gospel narrative, which is creation, fall, uh, redemption, and then restoration. And
mm-hmm.
so every story you can see in every story one of those, if not multiple of those. And this one is all fall, baby. This one is a,
Big time. I took an extra long shower after this one.
Yeah. So I guess for that reason, I could never recommend this to just anyone.
Yeah.
And even the people I recommended it to, I would say just know, you know, there's this gets dark, and you're gonna see some stuff you may not want to see. But and it's kind of a shame, I guess why he did it, but if it wasn't for that, I'd be happy to recommend this to a lot of people,
Yeah. I
but
thought you were gonna tell me you lost some friends over this recommendation.
not yet. But the episode's not out yet.
True,
but
true, true.
but I will say, even though you said it, like again, like the Sydney story was a little redemptive, where he went out on his own
Yeah,
terms.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Again, and it's such a small little storyline that he added in there.
Hmm.
But it was such a strong storyline of, yeah, he did it. He felt disgusted by doing it,
Yeah,
but he did what he had to do so everyone could get paid.
yeah,
But then when he walked out and he just said that, and then you see him playing and he's happy again.
yeah,
Like, was more, I think, more redemptive than any of the other storylines,
yeah.
Hmm.
because you were able to just make that call, say, hey, I did something I didn't like for a good reason, but now I'm out.
Yeah,
You're not going to own me.
yeah.
And I will add a great performance by Jovan Adepo. Really enjoyed his performance in it. I thought he was really funny, like the interactions that he was having with his cousin,
Oh
where
yeah,
Hmm.
he
so
where
funny.
he was like getting on him about being out of tune, being flat, and like really funny conversations. He was great, and then I don't know if he was really playing, man, but at least the character was really good on the
Yeah.
on the
I
trumpet.
I would have assumed he was.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never seen him in anything else. I don't recognize the name, but so maybe he is just a musician who can act. I don't know, but I don't
No,
know.
but he's in a lot. He's in a lot of TV stuff, like The Leftovers,
Oh,
NCIS,
okay.
Los Angeles,
All right.
Mm,
Three Body
Yeah.
Problem, stuff like that.
There are
nice.
a lot of interesting
Ooh.
videos on YouTube about this movie. I have like at least three saved in my watch later queue that I was hoping to watch before this episode, but these darn pesky kids keep interfering with my life.
They need to be fed every
You know
day,
how that
apparently.
goes. You know
They,
how that
they need
goes.
so much attention. Anyway, appreciate you guys fitting this in to your busy weeks. I know it's 3 hours is a lot more than 1.5 hours. That's just simple math right there. And so,
You nailed it.
thanks, man. But I'm glad you guys got to watch it, and you enjoyed some parts of it at least.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I was happy to watch this again. So this was Babylon again. You've heard it from us. You've heard the good, the bad, the ugly. If you dare to, go out and watch it and let us know what you thought about it. I, for one, am very excited because next up is Mark's pick, and I know even though he doesn't like to wear sleeves, I know he's got something up his sleeve.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting. So, anything you want to tell us about that, Mark, or you just want to leave us enticed, titillated?
Yep. Nope. Enticed, baby.
My taste is in.
Duval.
Duval.
All right, boys. Well, let's do this again real soon. All right, gentlemen. Well, as usual, we previewed it, we viewed it, and now we've reviewed it.
All right.
Love you.
God
Love
bless
you
you
all.
all.
Come and get it, crying out loud. The love that I was giving you was never in doubt. Let go your heart, let go your head, and feel it now. Let go your heart, let go your head, and feel it now. Babylon, Babylon. Duval.